Dr. Jones, again we see there is nothing you can possess which I cannot take away. And you thought I'd given up.
What's up, folks? This is Justin from Books, Bricks, and Boards. And today I'm going to do another video in my series of mechanics and tools that you should be stealing from games to use in your OSR or D&D game. These different things that I'm going to offer today are going to spice up your campaign, give your players a little bit of surprise in their sessions, and perhaps best of all but one of these is completely free. So strap in and get ready for 5 great tools that you can use in your game right now. Let's get into it. And coming in at number 5 is this great dungeon time tracking sheet from Necrotic Gnome Games and Gavin Norman. This is available for free on their website. The reason I chose this is because it proceduralizes the dungeon experience. This follows the procedure that is set out in BXD&D, but it gives you a nice sheet to keep track of it and to make that procedure much easier at the table. You will see that there are W's every other square. That's because every other turn in BXD&D you would roll for a wandering monster. And then on the 6th square, you are going to have an R. That means that you need to rest. If you don't, you're going to get penalties. And then you're also going to see a T at the end of each of these lines because that's when your torch expires and you're going to have to light a new torch. So it gives you a nice, easy means to track that. At the end of the row, you've got an L because your lantern oil expires and you need to refill the lanterns. This also has some very nice reminders of sequence of play and different durations of torches and lanterns and light spells and so on and so forth. Also tells you what the chance of a wandering monster are, what resting does, so on and so forth. And there's a nice section here for referees' notes. Now, I have actually laminated my copy because it is very nice to be able to reuse the same one because I use this in every session now. And you can use a wet erase or dry erase marker. I prefer wet erase because then it doesn't get smeared whenever I accidentally touch it while at the table. But this is a great tool, and even though the procedures here aren't specifically true to every game system, you can easily insert these procedures into any game system, and it is going to bring you a much more tense and resource-dependent dungeon crawling experience. So for that reason, I think this is a tool you should be adding to your game. And coming in at number 4, I have got an item from Lamentations of the Flame Princess. I believe the last time I did a video where I included this book, it was too close to the light and the reflection kind of prevented folks from being able to see this in all of its glory. But this is Lamentations of the Flame Princess, and it is a version of BXD&D. And this particular tool that you might want to use is going to be specifically aimed at folks that are playing some version of BXD&D, be it regular BX, be it old school Essentials, Labyrinth Lord, or any of the variations thereof. What they have done with Lamentations of the Flame Princess is they have taken the thieves' skills that are just woefully bad until you get to a very high level, which is quite unlikely given the survivability of the thief in BXD&D. And they've made those so you have some choices. And Gavin Norman and the folks at Necrotic Gnome have done something similar in Carcass Crawler issue number 1, but that's a little bit harder to get a hold of. And this has a free version online for download, so you can download a copy of Lamentations of the Flame Princess without art for free. So that's why I included it in here. So instead of the traditional percentage system for BXD&D Thieves, this has a 1 in 6 system, which is actually closer to the way that similar actions happen for other classes in that system. So you would start with all of these different skills, and some of these are not thief related, some of them are just more skills that you would see in a more modern game. And you'll start with a 1 in 6 chance, and then you add skill points to them to increase that. So you get 4 skill points to distribute to start with. So you could have one skill that you are really good at right off of the bat. So if you wanted to be an assassin, you could start really high with stealth or sneak attack. If you wanted to be able to pick pockets, you could raise your sleight of hand. But the point is, you are not woefully bad at everything. You could actually have something that you are skilled in and a reason for being in the group. Now, one in particular that I really like how it works is the sneak attack, because the sneak attack, the number of points that you put into that is actually the multiplier for the damage on a successful sneak attack. So if you have 5 points in sneak attack, then you are doing times 5 damage with a successful sneak attack, which is a very interesting way to play a lower level thief with that one just super ability. But this is something that you could easily just take this section and insert it into any BX style thief class and replace the one that is existing, and probably have a much more interesting game experience for the players that play that class. Okay, so this is the only tool that I'm going to mention today that is not available in a free PDF. This is Wolves of God. This is written by Kevin Crawford, which ironically, all of his other games, there is a free PDF available. So I'm not sure why there wasn't for Wolves of God, but it's an incredible book nonetheless. It is in this beautiful leatherette type binding, and it has this kind of parchment look to it. I know a lot of folks don't like that, but this I didn't find was distracting from the reading at all. It actually kind of added to the experience. But the different tool that I am going to talk about from this game is scars. So in Wolves of God, a character cannot die until they've kind of fulfilled their destiny. They have a series of weirds that must happen before their character can die, and if they would have died before then, they get a scar. Well, I wouldn't use it exactly like that in other systems, because that's pretty particular to this type of setting. But I would use this table, and the reason I say that, a lot of times folks that are coming to a form of BX from a more modern game are going to be very uncomfortable with the fragility of their characters, especially if it's going to be a campaign game. If it is a one-shot and a character dies, oh well. But if it is a campaign and every time a character hits 0 hit points, they are automatically dead, there is no saving throw, there is no chance of them surviving that wound, then you're going to turn off a lot of the new players that weren't raised in that environment. So this gives kind of a happy medium. So if you get lowered to 0 and you don't die, like, you might even offer them a death saving throw. But whatever you decide, this at least has some consequences for being dropped to 0. You roll a D100, and then you take the effect that is listed. For example, if you roll a 51 to a 53, you are missing an arm now. It deprives you of its use for a -4 dexterity. So your dexterity goes down, and you no longer have 2 arms. Not all of them are that bad. You could have a blinded eye. You could have a torn face that lowers your charisma. But there's all sorts of really interesting options here. And like I said, it puts some skin in the game so that reckless actions have consequences. And I think that still gets to the spirit of BX D&D without being quite as harsh as the original game intended. And for this next tool, this is Stars Without Numbers. Again, another game by Kevin Crawford. And as I mentioned earlier, as most of his games do have, this has a free PDF download available online. It doesn't have all of the material, but it has most of it, and it's going to have what you're going to need here. This that I'm going to talk about here is somewhat aimed at a sci-fi campaign, but it is very, very broad in such a way that you could easily use it in a fantasy campaign. But I'm going to talk about the Adventure Seeds generator. So with this, Kevin gives us a very nice toolkit for coming up with adventures on the fly. And what you do is you roll a D100 and you get a result, and then it gives you a broad idea of what the adventure is going to be. For example, let's say I rolled a 33. A friend seeks to elope with their lover and contacts the party to help them meet their paramour at a remote, dangerous place. On arrival, they find that the lover is secretly an enemy, desirous of their removal, and merely lured them to the place to meet their doom. So that is such an evocative paragraph. You could easily think, okay, in my campaign, who might that person be that would ask the party to help them? And who might the enemy be? And how is that going to throw a twist into my campaign? And it's just a great resource for ideas to shake up your campaign if you don't have a firm idea of what you're going to play the next time you meet. This is a great way to do that. You could even do this on the fly and generate some awesome ideas on the fly. But like I said, there's 100 of these here. I believe there's a similar table in Worlds Without Number as well. But whatever you use, this is going to be a great way to generate content for your game and to keep your players on their toes and make your world feel more alive and more fantastic. So that's why I think that Stars Without Number is definitely a tool book that you should use. All right, so this next tool is from another Kevin Crawford game. This is Worlds Without Number. This is the fantasy version of Stars Without Number, but it does add a lot on its own. And honestly, when it comes to Stars Without Number and Worlds Without Number, I could do an entire video on each of these games just about the different mechanics and tools that you can steal from them to add to your own game. But I'm going to pick one in particular today that I think you should be using right away in whatever fantasy game you're playing, because this is universally useful and it is going to contextualize your encounters much better than most of us can come up with on our own. So this is going to be on page 293. And again, there is a free version of this book online. It is a little bit different than this one. I've got the deluxe edition here, but the toolkit is still all in the free version. There's just some free classes and things in the deluxe edition. But let me get here. The one roll monstrous context is just an amazing tool. So what you do is you grab each of your 6 standard polyhedral dice and you roll them all, and you come up with kind of a guideline for how your monster fits in your world. So the different sections of this: how much local contact does it have? How do the locals react to its drive? What scars has it left here? How did the monster arise? What is the connection with the past? And what's a twist to this monster's activities? And so you just roll all these dice, and it gives you a nice flowing story to give the players an idea of why this monster exists in the world. Of course, you're not going to just read these off to the players, but it tells you, it informs you, so that whenever they are exploring and coming across information that should give them this answer, you know how the monster got here, and you know the monster's story to share with your players in your own way. So this is just one of many tools in this book, but I find this one particularly useful, and this is, of course, a great game because Kevin Crawford is a great RPG creator. So that's the end of the list for today. I hope you did enjoy the video. If you did, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, good gaming, and God bless.